Good evening. We're holding on page 108, the middle of Perek Mem. 4 lines from the top. And let's recap what we did last week, and then we will continue, and we'll also go back review a little of that which we spoke about at the end of last week's share. So we're talking here about learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, and the impact that our kavanah has on our Torah and mitzvahs. And as we learned over the past few shiurim, that when a person does a mitzvah with kavanah, with a proper kavanah lishma, which kavanah means avas Hashem and yiras Hashem, so when a person has that kavanah, so then that gives the mitzvah life, it gives the mitzvah spiritual identity, and elevates the mitzvah to a higher level, the level of that of the avas Hashem and yiras Hashem, whether it's Elam Habriya, whether it's Elam HaYitzira, etc. If a person doesn't have a kavanah lishma, so then the Torah mitzvah stays over here in this world, in the world of asiyah, in the world of action. And if chas v'shalom, if a person learns Torah, and not only was it not learned with the proper kavanah, but it was learned with the wrong kavanah, it was learned in order to have kavod, to be called a Talmid Chacham. So then, what a person has done is that person effectively lowers the Torah into klippa, at least temporarily, until the person does tshuva, at which time then the Torah is once again, the Torah is nis'ala, is elevated to its proper place.
Is it still a mitzvah?
It's still a mitzvah. And that's why the Gemara says, Lo olam yasik adam b'Torah mitzvah shtei lishma. It's a mitzvah, just a mitzvah that hasn't been elevated. And when you do tshuva, that mitzvah will be elevated. If you're not going to learn the Torah, do the mitzvahs, then later when you do tshuva, you're not going to have what to elevate. So that's why the Gemara says, you should learn Torah and do mitzvahs even if you don't have the proper kavanah, because eventually you will do tshuva. Once you do tshuva, then you will elevate it. And yes, a mitzvah it remains. So before we ended last time, we started off when we asked the question, who are we kidding when we're talking about elevating Torah and mitzvahs? We're elevating Torah, we're elevating mitzvahs. Who are we? But it's not only who are we, it's what is Torah. If we understand what Torah is, the Torah is absolutely one with Hashem. You know, we're talking here about elevating a mitzvah to the world of Bria or to the world of Yitzira. Torah is above and beyond all of that. Torah is higher than everything. Torah is one with Hashem Himself. We're going to elevate our Torah. We're going to elevate Torah through our kavanah. Makes no sense. So that's where we started. That's where we started, and let us do one side. Again, page 108, 4 lines from the top. And even though that the Torah and Hashem are all one, as we learned many times in Tanya, that Hashem and His Ratzon Hashem and His will are absolutely one. And therefore, the implied question is, if Torah is one with Hashem, and mitzvahs are one with Hashem, Hashem's Ratzon is one with Him, then what does it mean that we're elevating Torah? Says the Alter Rebbe, we know that Hashem, He fills all the worlds, b'shava equally. There's no difference between higher worlds and lower worlds. Hashem is equally present everywhere. And even though that Hashem is present everywhere, as we know that the worlds are not equal in their level, in their madriga. We have higher worlds and we have lower worlds, which raises the obvious question: if you have higher worlds and lower worlds, then why is it? That raises the question: if Hashem is equally everywhere, then what does it mean that there are higher worlds and lower worlds?
It should be all b'shavim.
It should be all equal, because as we know, what does it mean a higher world? What does it mean a lower world? We're not talking, as mentioned many times, we're not talking spatially. So what makes a world higher is a greater presence of Hashem. Makes a world lower is a lower presence. So if Hashem is equally present everywhere, what does it mean that there are higher worlds and lower worlds? The difference between higher worlds and lower worlds is mahamikablim. Is when it comes to mekablim bebeis bechinas in 2 different levels, as we spoke about last week. One of them is there's the idea of Hester, and there's the idea of tzimtzum. We started speaking about this last week. And that is that the higher worlds have a greater degree of energy, and that the greater degree of energy is revealed in those worlds. In the lower worlds, the lower you go, so then A, there is less energy, and B, that minimal amount of energy that there is also concealed over there.
So what causes the tzimtzum, anyways? You said it was just the 10 spheres. They have this. They have different capability of receiving it.
Right. So the difference is only that Hashem created higher worlds with a higher capacity to receive, lower worlds with a lower capacity to receive. But he's equally present.
He's equally present. That's what you said last week.
Yes. Right. He's equally present.
So the tzimtzum is the keli itself. That is its ability to receive. It just takes a small portion of the Ara Ein Sof.
Correct.
And it wasn't that the other ones has and Revelation has started. When he says the tzimtzum and the other one's
Hester. Tzimtzum means contraction. That there's less. And Hester means in hiddenness. And the two separate things, as we discussed last week. You can have a lot of oil, but it's all hidden. You can have a little oil, but it's revealed. And here we have double. In our world, as we'll see, we have a double whammy: very little oil, very minimal oil, and also the oil is completely hidden. As we discussed last week. So, for example, if you have Hashem is present in all the worlds equally, but using the example we used last week of a radio, that some of them have better, more powerful antennas, and therefore they receive more, and some have weaker, smaller antennas, and they receive less. So our world has a weaker, smaller antenna, and therefore it receives very little. And not only that, but whatever it does receive, also that is behelam. And why is that? Is behester, is hidden. And why is that? Because our world is a physical world, and the more physical, and therefore, because it's a physical world, its capacity to be able to receive the divine energy, Hashem's energy, is much lower and much less than in the higher spiritual worlds. So our world is the lowest world in both areas. In other words, there's the least iron over here because it's physical, and whatever there is hidden inside. Thank you. Bebeis bechinas. There are two, when we say that the difference between higher worlds and lower worlds, the difference is when it comes to the recipients of Hashem's oir, and in two different ways. Ha'echad, one way, one difference between the higher worlds and the lower worlds. Shall yoinim mekablim ha'ara yeser gedel ein kates matachtoinim. The higher worlds, they receive a much higher and greater level of divine energy than the lower worlds. Excuse me, vashenis. Secondly, shemekablim, that energy which the higher worlds receive, they don't receive it with as many garments, as in the lower worlds. The lower you get, the more garments that are covering it up. Not only it's less energy, but that minimal energy is also covered up. And this world is the lowest world in both ways. The divine energy that's within it is so little. Therefore this world is physical because there's so little divine energy in there that it's physical. Moreover, not only is there a tiny amount of oir, of godliness here, moreover, the oir is covered up by many different garments, many different curtains, until it came into klipas noiga. So we notice over here you have different. It says here levushim. A levush is a garment, and then musachim. A masach is a curtain. And then you have klipa. Klipa is a shell or is a husk.
So why does it used to be different?
Think about it. Each one shows on a different level of helam v'haster. So clothing covers up a person, right? But do clothing really cover up a person? When you look at a person, can you say, oh, the person's hiding behind his clothing? No, because actually clothing, while they do cover up a person, but at the same time they're to your size, you could see the person very well through the clothing. I don't mean you see the skin, but the person is very much obvious and clear in the clothing. And not only that, if you have nice clothing, it actually makes you even, not only doesn't, no one's going to say, wow, those clothing are hiding the person. Even more so, a person's going to look and say, wow, look, that person looks so nice because of the way he's dressed. Much nicer than if he wasn't dressed, right? So clothing is a covering, but it's not a very big helm. Now a curtain is a bigger. That's a bigger hester. That's a bigger hiddenness, right? When something's behind a curtain, you can't make out the image, you can't make out the shape. But if you have a light behind the curtain, so some of the light comes through. But a curtain is much more of a hester than levushim, which is clothing. But at the end of the day, as mentioned, even a curtain, you can see through a little curtain. And light can get through a curtain. And then you have a klipa, which is a shell, like this shell, a klipas ego is like the shell of a walnut. That's an absolute hell of a hester. So if you notice, when it comes to the higher worlds, it talks about that as the worlds get lower and lower, you have more levushim and more mesachim. You have more garments and you have more curtains. It doesn't say klipa. Why? Because in the higher world, there's always gilui. There's always some revelation. So a klipa means absolute hell of a hester. But then it says that in this world, right? It's not in this world the oyer comes bilavushim u'masachim rabim, becomes in many garments and in many curtains, to the extent sheneslapsha beklipas noiga. In this world you have what's called klipa, which means that the godliness, the elokus, is absolutely hidden. Absolutely hidden. Very, very little godliness, and that godliness is very hidden. And because it's in klipa, therefore, through the klipa, Hashem's light in this world gives life. Called Dvarim hatahorim sheba'elam haza. All the things that are kosher in this world, that's klipas noiga. Ubechlalam, included in that, hu nefesh hachiyunis hamedabera sheba'adam, is the person's neshama, nefesh habahamis, which speaks. That's also klipa. Absolute klipa. And that's why when a person speaks, for the most part, do you sense Hashem? No. Average person, you see them an average conversation. So there is no kedusha evident. That's the absolute klipa that's over there. But what happens when a person speaks Torah or tefillah without kavana? Without kavana, once again, means without avas Hashem, without yiras Hashem. So now what happens? Even though that the words that you're saying, the words of davening, the words of Torah are heilig keverter, they're holy words. The klipa, which is in your neshama, which is saying the words, it is not masach mavdil klal. It's not at all in any way a curtain that can separate lahastir or lachasais akdushasa yisbara, to cover up on Hashem's kedusha hamlubeshes behen, which is within them. Words of Torah are holy, and when a person says the words of Torah, the words are absolutely holy. There is no hiddenness. This is not like the way that the Nefesh HaBahamis covers up and hides al kedushasa yisbarach shebenefesh achiyunis, on the kedusha which is within the Nefesh HaBahamis shmedaberes dvarim b'teilim. When a person speaks dvarim b'teilim, so then what happens is that the godliness which is within your Nefesh HaBahamis is covered up by a klipa, meaning you don't see the godliness at all. When a person is talking dvarim b'teilim, absolute helen v'hester. And it's also the difference. The same thing is when it comes to the nefesh, which is in all kosher animals. That over there Hashem is absolutely hidden, because that's klipa. Even though that we know that there's no place which is devoid of Hashem, mikal makim still, ihu Hashem, as the Zohar says, is stimu dechol stimin. Stimu dechol stimin means Hashem is hidden. And who's he hidden from? He's hidden from the hidden ones. In other words, not only is hidden from us, even the highest hidden malach, Hashem is hidden from them also. V'nikra keil mistater. We know that Hashem is referred to as the Hashem who hides. And also the energy that comes from Hashem and that emanates from Hashem. Also it hides in tremendous clothing and curtains, very strong concealments. Until it comes into the garment of klipas nega. But that's all true regarding everything in the world. Regarding when a person speaks dvar b'telim, regarding a treifa, even a kosher animal. It's all klipa. As opposed to the holy words when a person davens or learns. The adarabah. There is no halam v'hester. There's nothing hidden. Klipas nega misapechas l'toiv. To the contrary, when you're saying words of Torah, you're transforming your klipa to good. V'nichlalas b'kedusha azu, and it's nichlal in this kedusha. Kinis Kalil was mentioned earlier. So what's he saying here? He's saying that again, you have all the worlds. The higher worlds have a greater amount of greater amount of revelation, greater amount of Hashem's light, and that light is revealed. In this world, it's tzimtzum. The oir is so contracted. You have a very small amount of oir because it's gashmi, and that oir is hidden in a klipa. That's what klipa is. Klipa doesn't mean that it's a little oir. Klipa doesn't mean that it's a small amount of oir. Klipa means that the oir is totally blocked. That's true of everything in the world, but not Torah, not Tefillah. When a person says Torah and Tefillah, there is no klipa, period. When a person says Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'sa'aretz, when a person utters words of Torah, what's coming out of the mouth? Hashem's wisdom. Is there anything concealing Hashem's wisdom? No. Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'es ha'aretz, amachloikis of Abaya and Rava, that is Hashem's wisdom. There is no klipa, there's nothing hiding it. Absolutely not. This is Hashem's chachma, this is Hashem's ratzon. Nothing can block that in this world. And that's what we say, the only thing in this world that isn't klipa is Torah mitzvahs. Everything else, this is something which is a recurring theme in Tanya. Everything else has what's called hester panim. Hester panim means that Hashem's ratzon within it is hidden. Hashem's ratzon is within everything. Hashem's ratzon is within this watch. Otherwise there wouldn't be a watch, right? Why does this watch exist? Because it's Hashem's ratzon. But when you look at the watch, you don't see that. Because everything hides. Everything in this world absolutely hides the ratzon of Hashem which is within it, even though Hashem's ratzon isn't everything. The only thing that doesn't hide Hashem's ratzon is Torah and mitzvahs and tefillah. When you say words of Torah, there is no hester panim, there is no klipa. That is Hashem's words. But if you remember, we said that in this world there are two things. Number one, we said it's the oir is very, very minimal. The light is very minimal. Number two, whatever there is hidden. So we said in Torah nothing's hidden. There is no hester. But the tzimtzum there is. Remember, there are two things that characterize our world. Tzimtzum and hester. In Torah there is no hester, but tzimtzum there is. When a person says words of Torah, there is tzimtzum. Why is there tzimtzum? Let's do one side. Mikal Makim still, 2 lines from the bottom of page 108. Mikal Makim still. The oir which is present in these words, again, and we're talking about when a person said these words without kavana, we're being very specific. So the light from Hashem's kedusha, which is within these words of Torah, even though again the light is revealed, there's no klipa, no hester, but he begins tzimtzum. It is very, very small, very limited. Ad kitzei ha'achrin, very, very much. It's the absolutely very, very little amount of air. Again, why? Because the words you're saying is physical. Everything in the world, because it's physical, has a very, very little amount of divine energy in it. What's the difference in Torah and everything else? The difference is that in Torah there is no hester, and everything else there's hester. But in terms of the tzimtzum, by definition, if something is physical, the amount of oir that can be in it, the physical is not a good antenna, using the muscle of the radio. spiritual, the more spiritual something is, the more it's receptive to Hashem's oir. When something is physical, it's not that receptive, so it receives only a little. So there is no Helam V'Hester, there is no Klippa when a person's uttering words, but because the words are physical, so the oir is very bitzimtzum, there's a very little amount of oir in it. There's Hashem's Chachma in there, there's Hashem's Ratzon in there, but to a very, very limited degree. Although whatever is there is revealed. Aval, however, top line of page Nun Hey, V'tfila b'kavana, v'teira b'kavana l'shma. What happens when you learn Torah or you daven with kavana l'shma? Then what happens? Hariyah kavana mislabeshes beis yisadibur. Then the kavana that you have, the avas Hashem and the yiras Hashem that you have, enters the words. Why does it enter the words? Because it is the source of the words. It motivates the words. It is because of your avos Hashem. It is because of your yiras Hashem that you are saying these words. And what happens?
Elevate.
Just like when you have a neshama and a guf. When a person's alive, do you say, is the guf alive or is the neshama alive? Which one's alive? And the guf?
Well, that's alive. It's only following. It's like an
But-
engine.
But right now, as long as a person's alive, the guf is alive. Because the neshama makes the guf alive also, right?
The body has to function.
Right, but my point is that at this point, the neshama gives life to the guf. It's not only that the neshama is alive and the guf is dead. The neshama gives life to the guf. What we have over here is like this. When you say words of Torah Tefillah, so that's a guf. That's all. If there is no kavana, if there is no avas Hashem, it's a guf. And a guf
Has no neshama.
is dead. Meaning, it's physical, and therefore the amount of divine energy that can be revealed in the guf is minimal.
Yeah.
But when you have avas Hashem and yiras Hashem, that becomes the neshama. And that enters, as we know, when a person does a mitzvah or davens with a hislahavos, with a avos, with a yira, the words become alive. The deed becomes alive. And what happens is that these words now are spiritual words. They're not physical anymore. They're alive. Just like a body becomes alive when it has a neshama, when you infuse your Torah and your tefillah with avos Hashem and yiras Hashem, what you've done is you've taken those words and you're giving them a spiritual identity. They become alive. They become spiritual. If they're alive, if they're spiritual, what happens? Now
There's less tzimtzum.
there's less tzimtzum, exactly. Now they go up to a higher world. To which world? Whichever world the kavana is from. Because the body is as alive as the neshama is. The words of Torah and Tefillah, to how alive, how holy, how alive are they? Depends. If it's one level of kavana, then it goes up to the world of bria. A higher level, so a little lower level of kavana goes up to the world of yitzira. But what you're doing is you're giving them a spiritual entity, and suddenly within this mitzvah, you can have a much greater degree of Hashem's ratzon is revealed in that. Even though, again, if you say just the words, you have the ratzon, but there it's a much smaller degree. So the difference between yes kavana and no kavana is not in Helam V'Hester. It's not, one is hidden, they're both not hidden. The difference is one is what's called tzimtzum v'ispashtus. Either the oir is very contracted in it, tzimtzum, or ispashtus, or the oir is very expansive within it, inside. L'chein, therefore, ki ma'ilo oisan, the kavana elevates the words ad mekoima up to the place of where the kavana is. Now, where's the kavana? Well, that's yitzfiris the yitzira the bria. Whether the 10 spheres of yitzira or bria, lefi mashia kavana, and that depends on the nature of the kavana. Bedechilu or rechimu sichliim aitivim chulu, depending on whether it's a yira and ava, which is an intellectual based or more of an emotional based, as discussed, kanal, as discussed earlier in the prakim. The shaman over there in the higher worlds, in other words, in the more spiritual worlds, there Meir, Miskala, Erin Seif Baruch over there. Their taka, the Erin Saf is revealed. Unlike here in this world where it's so bitzimtzum. Shu Ratzana Elyin. What's revealed? What is the Erin Saf? The Ratzana Elyin Baruch Hu Amalubish Ba'esi Satayra Shalaymet. We're not talking about anything other. The Erin Saf is the Ratzon, the Hashem's Chachma and Ratzon, which is in the Torah, in the mitzvahs. And that's revealed in the higher worlds, in the spiritual worlds. And when you have kavanah, that's what you're doing, is you're taking the mitzvah up to that spiritual worlds. So again, that's the Ratzon Elyon Baruch Hu Amalubish Ba'esi Satayra Shalemed, which is in the words of Torah which you learn, Uba Kavanasan, and in their Kavana, a Betfila B'Kavanasa, or davening with its Kavana, a Mitzvah Uba Kavanasa, or the Mitzvah and its Kavana. Ba'arek Delan over there, in the higher spiritual worlds, which is where you take the Mitzvah to if you do it with Kavana, over there, Ba'ara Gedela in Kates, over there, the revelation is so much more powerful, infinitely more powerful. Mashallah Yachal Lahoyer Lasgalis Klal cannot in any way be revealed Ba'oid Ha'esius V'Hamitzvah when the words of Torah mitzvahs V'Hamitzvah Ba'olam Haza Agashmi are in this physical world. In other words, when it's only physical, which means when you do it with Akavana, Le'minav, Le'miktsasa, in this world, in the physical act, there's no way that you can get anything close to the revelation that you can get if the act is a spiritual act. Ad eis ketzayam until the end of days. Sheyis'ala elam megashmi yusei, when the world will be elevated, will no longer be so grub, so physical. V'nigla kved Hashem v'gemer, and then taka, the spiritual will be able to be revealed in the Gashmius canal, as explained earlier by Richos at length. So we started off asking the question, we're elevating Torah. What kind of funny joke is that? Us elevating Torah. Torah is, we talk about how do we connect, the Torah connects us to Hashem. Yisrael, Miskashron, Beirai, so we connect the Torah connects us to Hashem. As we mentioned last week. Alpayim Shana Kadma Torah Le'elam, Torah is higher in the world, Torah is higher than all the worlds, Torah is higher than Atzilus also. We're elevating Torah. What does that mean? But now we understand that we're not elevating Torah. The point is, are we elevating our words of Torah? Our words of Torah, what does it mean to elevate it? What does it mean to elevate it? Elevate means that our words of Torah are physical, and therefore, because they're physical, they're strongly limited in terms of how much of Hashem's ratzon they can convey. They can conduct. You have certain what?
And the understanding of the Torah itself. Because the more you elevate it, the more understanding you would have of the Torah.
And the more kavana, the more spiritual, the more it conducts. Anyone here knows anything about electricity? Maybe.
A little bit.
Okay, so you have certain.
Electrical engineer.
Oh, okay. So you have certain substances that conduct electricity.
Yeah.
And certain substances that conduct it more.
Copper, silver has better conductivity, less resistance.
Water.
Water, no, unless it has salt. It has.
Yeah.
Really? So if you drop a plug into
Don't be in
the
the bathtub and play that. Don't drop a radio in a bathtub.
why if water doesn't conduct? I thought you said water doesn't conduct.
Only if we're in the water.
Yeah, right.
Whatever it is, lowers resistance.
Okay, but the bottom line is they're different, right? So the same thing is spiritually, that there are certain substances that conduct Ratzna Elyon better than others.
How do you
A physical act is the worst conductor. It conducts. There is the Gili of Ratzna Elyon, but very, very little. The more spiritual the act, the finer it is, and the better it conducts, the more you can have the Ratzna Elyon being revealed. But again, to emphasize, we're not talking about when it comes to Torah mitzvahs. Helam v'hester there isn't, klipa there isn't. That we got rid of. There is no klipa on Torah mitzvahs. But the question is, how much is revealed? And when we give the mitzvah a spiritual identity, that's when it becomes even holier. Yeah.
How would one increase their kavanah? Would it be based upon their depth of knowledge of Torah, or can it be done through a spiritual?
Kavana is avos Hashem and yiras Hashem.
That's
That's all. In other words, yes, we've spoken about this many times.
Right.
This is different than the word kavana, as usually. But why is that? Why do we use the word kavana?
right.
Because kavana is important. Avos Hashem and yiras Hashem on their own are not. That's really going to be a big chiddush that the Rebbe is going to. We're talking here in the Perek. Ava and yira don't get you closer to Hashem. Kavana does. Meaning, when you take your ava and yira and use them as motivation to do a mitzvah, then you connect to Hashem. And not only do you connect to Hashem, but it's a much greater connection as mentioned, because then also there's a much greater gilui within the act of that mitzvah. So that's why the Alter Rebbe used the word kavan as opposed to ava v'yira. So you shouldn't make the mistake and think ava v'yira themselves do anything. No, ava v'yira themselves, actually, as we mentioned in Perek Lamed Hey, ava v'yira themselves are egotistical. I fear. However, so they themselves don't connect you to Hashem. But when your ava and yira motivate, when they become the neshama, when they enter your Torah mitzvahs and become the neshama of your Torah mitzvahs, then together you have a shining, beautiful mitzvah.
So kavana would come through the physical act, not only through the...
No. How do you want to know how you develop ava and yira to Hashem? That's chapter 41 through chapter 50. Keep on coming.
The words of Torah is a chilik, but how it's Torah is the words from the Torah is
It's exactly what he says. But my words, the question is how much of that gili of the Eid Sof, the Eid Sof is Nasgala and Torah, but in my physical words, if I don't have kavana, so because it's physical, how much of that Eid Sof is Nasgala in it? If I make it a ruchnistic words by adding the Ava and Yira, then the gili of Eid Sof in my words is greater. We're talking about my words of Torah. That's the whole Nakuda he's saying over here. I'm not elevating Torah in the abstract. Torah doesn't need my help. But my words of Torah, how much gili of the Eid Sof are my words, that depends on whether I have kavana or not. And now the Alter Rebbe says, Ubezeh Yuvan Heitev, and now we'll understand. Well, we are going to skip the three notes, the Hagois, and Mitzvah Hashem, next week we'll come back to them. Ubezeh Yuvan Heitev, with this we'll understand, well, how did Chilu Rechimu Nekraim Gadfin? That the fact that fear of Hashem and love of Hashem, they are called Gadfin, they're called wings, Derech Mashal. That's what Rabbi Chaim Vital says. The Ava and Yira are called the two wings. Kediksiv, as the Pasuk says this about by the Merkava, when it's describing the Malachim, it says over there, Ubishtayim Yoifef, that the Malachim fly with two wings. As Rabbi Chaim Vital says, Mishar Yechudim in Perek Aleph. Now, this is something which is obvious, that the Malachim don't have wings. Malachim don't have wings because they're not physical. So, although you see all the pictures and the depictions and the drawings of Kaviyachol, a Malach with wings, they have no body, they have no wings, and everything that any words that we use to describe Malachim are obviously just anthropomorphisms, which means that they're physical words used to describe spiritual features. So it says over there, but the Malachim that they fly with two wings, and it talks about how these wings lift them higher. So what are these wings? So Rabbi Chaim Vital says these two wings means that the Malachim have Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, and their Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem lifts them up to higher levels. So why are Ava and Yira called wings? So he says Shaknafayim ba'oif, the wings by a bird, correspond to the arms of a person, chulu. And therefore, just like by a person, the two arms, the right arm and the left arm are Ava and Yira, Chesed and Gevura. So the two wings of a bird also are called Ava and Yira. But by the bird, the two wings are called Gadfin. The wings, which in Aramaic is called Gadfin, are love of Hashem and fear of Hashem. Ubitikunim Pirishu, and in Tikuni Zayar, it's explained, those who do Torah mitzvahs with kavana, meaning with love of Hashem and fear of Hashem, the kroim banim, are called sons of Hashem. V'im lav, and those who do Torah mitzvahs but without avas Hashem and yiras Hashem, the kroim afrechim, they are called fledglings, chicks, dlayachlim leparcha, that can't fly because they're missing their wings. Why are Ava and Yira referred to as wings? Alter Rebbe says that the analogy is perfect. Wings on their own, unless you're eating them. But in terms of for the bird, the wings on their own have no value, and they're non-essential to the body. Alter Rebbe brings down the halacha that al pi halacha, if a bird is missing its wings, the bird's wings were clipped, taken off, not clipped like you do today. No, it's kosher. Nitlo agapeh ksher, it's kosher. Which tells us the fact that it's kosher, even if its wings are taken off, tells us that it's not considered a life-threatening injury. which means it's not essential to its chayis, to its life. It could live without wings.
I mean, they're totally severed. Not if it was a broken bone. I think it's a trait. Yeah,
I'm not. It's a good question. I don't know.
Let's get that.
But upon him, if it's broken, if they're gone, the bird's still kosher. So what do the wings do? They serve the purposes of the bird. That if the bird wants to fly, so the bird alone is a creature of value, even without the wings. But the wings alone are garnished. We have a live creature. In other words, we have something with the bird. The bird is the main thing. It's obvious. The goof of the bird is the main thing. And the wings serve the bird to lift it up higher. And that's why it's such a perfect metaphor for Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem. Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem are garnished. You don't have a bird there. You don't have anything. But when you have... And the bird itself, which means a mitzvah itself without Avos Hashem, Yiras Hashem, is ksheira, it's kosher. Because when a person does a mitzvah or learns Torah, that makes the connection with Hashem. That's Hashem's ratzon is there and Hashem's chachma is there. But when you have the wings on the bird, that takes the mitzvah and it lifts it up. It gives it a spiritual identity and lifts it up to a place where there can be a much greater gilui of the Ein Sof within that mitzvah. So it's a perfect metaphor for what we're trying to say. Ki k'meish kanfi ha'oif einam ikar ha'oif. Just like the wings of a bird is not the main part of the bird. In fact, the life of a bird is not contingent at all upon the wings. As we learned in our Mishnah, if the wings were removed, it's kosher. What is the main thing? Is the body and the head and the body. The wings, they only serve the head, and the body. And allows them to fly. This is the same thing. Mitzvahs is the main. In Torah mitzvahs, that's the yichud, ha'elyon. You want to connect Hashem? The yichud is only Torah mitzvahs. Aydegili ratzna elyon, ha'misgali al yidayin. Ratzna elyon is revealed through Torah mitzvahs. Batchilu or rechimu. The fear and the love, the elevate the mitzvah l'makim she is galabei haratzon ein seif baruch hu, to the place where the haratzon of Hashem can be revealed in them. V'hayichud shen yitzira u'briya, which is the worlds of yitzira and briya. Okay, so this is with this we finished, and we have very, very fundamental understanding now of we've really finished a whole sugya now with this. A 3-parak sugya, which is we started off, as you know, a while ago talking about Maisa. Hashem wants a dir b'tachtoinim, Maisa mitzvahs, Maiso ikar, right? Everything all about Maisa. And Ava v'yira are nothing. Ava v'yira don't connect you to Hashem. Your feelings are nice, but they don't connect you to Hashem. You only connect to Hashem when you do a mitzvah, when you do what He wants you to do, when you learn His Torah. Your feelings can't connect you to Hashem. People think Torah, mitzvahs, they're so stifling. I'll find my way to connect to Hashem. I'll meditate, I'll find my spiritual path. It's Baba Maisis. There's no such thing. There's only one way to connect to Hashem, or actually 613 ways to connect to Hashem. Outlined in the Torah, they are the only avenue to Hashem, period. And that is because we can't connect to Hashem. That's a silly thought. That little insignificant us, on our own devices can connect to Hashem. The only way we connect to Hashem is when we use those ladders or those ropes that Hashem gave us as this is the way that you connect to me. And then, Peirik Lamed Ches, that's when the pushback started. And the other way started, which is, something out there says, yeah, that's good. Ava v'yira, unimportant. But Kavana is very important. Kavana, which is also Ava v'yira, but that's when the Ava v'yira is there to motivate the mitzvah. If you have Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem, and they become the neshama of your mitzvah, that's a different mitzvah. That's a mitzvah which is alive, which is vibrant, where there's so much more gili alakus within that mitzvah. And in fact, if you don't have that kavana, so tefillah b'lei kavana is keguf b'lei neshama, then taka, your mitzvah is like, it's missing its neshama. It's missing its neshama. Missing its neshama. It's still a mitzvah, but it's missing the neshama. So again, a mitzvah without the neshama has value. The ava v'yira without the mitzvah have no value. But what is the perfect ultimate mitzvah is the combination of the two. Then you have the connection. To put it this way, the mitzvah creates the connection. But when you put in the ava v'yira in the mitzvah, then you've added a relationship dimension to the connection. It's not only a connection, but then you have a relationship, a spiritual relationship, and that's the tachlis. Hakavana is to have both together, the mitzvah together with the kavana, which is the wings that lifts it up above. And as mentioned on previous occasions, this is where our relationship with Hashem is different than our relationship with human relationships. That in human relationships, the relationship is in the heart. That is the relationship. The relationship is the feelings that the two people have for each other. And the relationship expresses itself in deed. But the relationship is not deed. If there is no feelings, there is no relationship. There's nothing. But if there is no deed, for whatever reason, there still could be a relationship. A relationship of feelings. And by Hashem, it's the other way around. The relationship is the deed. And the feelings serve the deed. Whereas in human relationships, the relationship is the heart, and the deed serves the heart. But in our relationship with Hashem, it's the opposite is true. The relationship is the deed, Hamaisu Iker. That's where the yichud is. That's where the connection is. And the kavana enhances and elevates that mitzvah. But the main thing is, it's still we're holding by Hamaisu Iker. We know that this Shabbos is Gimel Tammuz. And that's 24 years. And obviously, for a chassid to the Rebbe, Gimel Tammuz is a time when the feelings are raw and are exposed and heightened. So hiskashrus to a tzaddik, hiskashrus is connected with ava and yira. Tzaddikim doimen lebeiram. There's the connection between a chassid and a rebbe, between tzaddikim, is definitely there's hiskashrus, a kesher of ava, and then obviously there's, as it says in Pirkei Avos, u'moira rabcha, right, k'moira shamayim. There's the element of moira also. And if the feelings are there present always, and that hiskashrus is present always, no question that around the time of Gimel Tammuz, so these feelings are even more there's a sicha shortly after the stalkus of the Frierdiker Rebbe. So the Rebbe said in a sicha once that the Rebbe said that someone wrote to me a letter that he misses the Frierdiker Rebbe so much, to the point that every once in a while when he thinks about the Rebbe he starts crying. So he wrote to the Rebbe. So the Rebbe said, "Befabringen, it's really nice that he cries." So the Chazal tell us that Kol hamoyrid mois al adam kosher, that whoever whoever has tears, over a adam kosher, gets a lot of schar. But what are you accomplishing through? What's he accomplishing through his tears? We know that the Frierdiker Rebbe says in the name of his father, "Toiva pula achas me'elef anachis." The one action is better than 1,000 sighs. And I believe that the Rebbe is somewhat echoing what we're learning in this Perek over here. Feelings on their own don't mean too much. Ava and Yira don't mean too much. If you take that same feeling and you channel it into an act, and you do so, then suddenly the feeling has value. Because that feeling then becomes the neshama of that action. And just like we connect to Hashem, we want to connect to tzaddikim also. And just like we connect to Hashem through doing the mitzvahs, we connect to tzaddikim also by following their directives, by following their instructions. So it's very nice to have an Ava for the Rebbe and a Yira for the Rebbe. This is like what the Rebbe is saying. It's very nice to miss the Rebbe and to cry for the Rebbe. It's nice. But you're not really connecting that way. You want to connect, go do something. Go do, find something which the Rebbe, a hira from the Rebbe, and go and do that. And that's a relevant message now around Gimel Tammuz, that just like to connect to Hashem, feelings are nice, but you need the Maisa. And once you have the Maisa, then the feelings come together to create something which is mamish incredible. The same thing is when it comes to our feelings towards tzaddikim, that we have to know also that Hamaisu or Iker, you want to connect that tzaddik, it's by learning that tzaddik's Torah, and following that tzaddik's instructions, and following the tzaddik's takanas. And when you have that, then the ava that you have for the tzaddik, the ava and the yira that you have for that tzaddik, also becomes the neshama of that, which takes the hiskashrus to an entirely new level, and to an entirely new level of gilui. Bashgacha Pratis, connected to both what we're learning in Tanya and also to Gimel Tammuz, is something which we've spoken about in the past, but I would like to repeat it again. Very famous Sikha. It's this week's Parsha. Sikha Parshas Koirach. And we know the whole stories of Shlach and Koirach, they're strange stories. Strange stories. Trying to understand them on the face of them is difficult. But the spies, they were holy people. Suddenly they're scared of going into Eretz Yisrael. These are people of, not that long ago, they had experienced the Yetzias Mitzrayim, Kriyas Yamsuf, and Matan Torah. That morning they woke up and they ate some man, and here they're doubting their ability to conquer Eretz Yisrael. It's difficult to understand. And they come back to the Klal Yisrael, and the whole Klal Yisrael joins in. And then the story of Korach also is difficult to understand, how Korach was able to successfully arrange a rebellion against Moshe Rabbeinu, considering that all the Yidden were aware of what's going on, with how great Moshe Rabbeinu was. Yeah.
When the Meraglim went, did they take man with them?
Did they take man with them? L'chayr not. Okay, you weren't allowed to leave it overnight. I didn't mean that morning. I meant the morning when they left Eretz Yisrael. Maybe when they came back, they had a quick snack of man before they finished. And sometimes we have to understand that even though that the events that are described in the Torah were physical events, and the events that the Torah describes are literal, the Torah, it's not a mashal, it's not a metaphor, but at the same time, we're dealing with really spiritual events that play themselves out in the physical arena, but everything has to be understood on the spiritual level, and once we understand them on the spiritual level, we can understand also what transpired physically and why it transpired physically. So the Alter Rebbe talks about this in Likutei Torah, and the Rebbe expands upon it, that the Meraglim, what they were scared of, and what they came back and they told the Yidden to be scared of, was the physicality of Eretz Yisrael. And they were scared that they would not be able to conquer that physicality, that the physicality would conquer them. They were scared that they would become, instead of going into and making it a holy land, they were scared that they would become land people, that they would become, the spies come back and they have these incredible, huge fruit, and they say the land is dripping with milk and honey, and the Yidden, they got so scared. Really? There's so much money there. There's so much plenty over there. We're going to sit and we're going to eat salt all day over there. And we're not going to learn, we're not going to daven, we're just going to become consumed by the land and by the Gashmius over there. They were deathly scared. And by the way, you might want to say that they had a good point. Take a Yid who's a koil Yid, give him a $2 million house, and a fancy few cars, and an investment portfolio, and tell him, I want you to remain a Ben Torah. It's not easy, right? No. There's a very strong chance that instead of him elevating that life, that he'll be dragged down. The Yidden didn't want to be dragged down. They were very happy in the Midbar, where there was no threat of being dragged down. And they had a point. The Meraglim had a point. And once we understand it from this perspective, we understand what they were saying, and they had a logical argument. And it wasn't because they weren't spiritual people. It was because they were spiritual people. You know, it says we have in the parsha last week that the Meraglim come back and they say, you know, we saw over there the Nephilim. What are the Nephilim?
Giants.
The Nephilim, the Anakim are the giants. What are the Nephilim? Those that fell. What so Rashi says? The Malachim that fell from heaven. So they come back to Yidden and said, you know what we saw over there? We saw Malachim. Holy, holy angels. And you know what happened when they entered Eretz Yisrael? What? They became corrupted. And you think we're going to be able to not become corrupted? If the Nephilim didn't manage, we're going to be able to manage. And the Yidden were like, that's a good point. A very good point. But what was their mistake? What was the mistake of the Yidden ultimately? The mistake was that they were not wrong in assuming that it would be very difficult. That it would be more difficult over there than it would be in the desert. They were correct in that. And they were also correct that in terms of their spiritual aspirations and their spiritual health is safer in the Midbar. But what they were, the point they were missing was that ultimately we have to do what Hashem wants. And what does Hashem want? Hashem wants a dir b'tachtonim, as discussed at length. Dir b'tachtonim means that we have to be in the physical world. Not, the point isn't to be in, you know, in some clouds in a desert somewhere. To go on the land, you have to make the land holy and the physical holy by doing the mitzvahs and trumas and maestras and all the mitzvahs that are associated with the land. So many mitzvahs that we could only be Mekayim in Eretz Yisrael, we can't be Mekayim elsewhere, and therefore, it might be more spiritually comfortable in the desert, but the kavana is dafka betachtoinim, the kavana is not in the davening and the learning and the meditation, which is what they were doing in the desert. The kavana is in the mitzvahs maisius, most of which are in Eretz Yisrael. And the Eden, Moshe screamed at them, they realized they made a mistake, but it was too late for them. So next we have Kairach, who also was a very holy person. The Kairach was from one of the people who carried the Aron, Menaisi Aron he was. You have to be very holy to carry the Aron. Rashi says that one of the reasons why there were so few Levis is because Aron Mechalabham, someone wasn't worthy who carried the Aron, died. And Kairach he carried the Aron and he was worthy of it. We're talking about a big tzaddik, right? Rashi says that Kairach was a Navi. He was a pikach, a wise person. He was a Navi. He saw Shmuel, right, coming out of him. And Kairach saw the story of the Meraglim, and he said, 1 second. Moshe Rabbeinu, you just said that the main thing is not the davening, and not the learning, and not this so not all the spiritual. The main thing is the physical act of doing a mitzvah. That's why we have to go into Eretz Yisrael. If the physical act is what's important, then kichola edo kulam kedoshim. Then we're all holy. We all do mitzvahs. Ubesaychem Hashem. Moshe, you might understand Torah better than me. You might be a more spiritual person than me, but my mezuzah is the same as yours. My tefillin is the same as yours. My tzedakah is the same as yours. If the ikar is in the action and my son mitzvahs, madua tisnasu al kahal Hashem. Then who are you? Why are you tisnasu? Ram b'nisan. Why do you think you're exponentially greater than everyone else if you just made it clear that the main thing is my son mitzvahs? So we see beautifully how the story of Kairach resulted from the story of the Meraglim. So why do we need a Rebbe? Is essentially what Kairach was saying. We're all by Har Sinai. We all received the Torah. We all have mitzvahs. We all do mitzvahs. We're all holy. And you're going to say you know more Torah than us. You daven with more gishmak. You have more avos Hashem and yiras Hashem. You're more spiritual. That's not what counts. If that's what counted, we should stay in the desert. The fact that we have to go into Eretz Yisrael to do mitzvahs shows that that's not what the ikar is. So Moshe answers Kairach. He says, "Boiker v'yoda Hashem eis asher lohim." In the morning, Hashem will notify who is his. And as Rashi points out, why did they have to wait till the morning? So Rashi gives whatever answers he gives, but al pi chassidus, Moshe was talking about Boiker, as Rashi says, just like in the morning you have these gvulos, right? You have these borders, there's Kohen, there's Levi, there's Yisrael. Boiker also symbolizes the idea of light. Obviously, Boiker, the morning, is the idea of light. And Moshe was saying, Boiker, because we need to have light, therefore, V'yoda Hashem Isa Shaloi, tomorrow you'll find out that yes, there has to be a Rebbe, there has to be Moshe, there has to be a Aaron. And that's really the point that we're talking about over here. You think about it. The Meraglim, the mistake they made is that they did not learn Tanya, Perik, Lamed Vav, and Lamed Zayin. Koirach didn't learn Perik Lamed Ches and Lamed Tes and Mem. That's where they messed up. The Perik Lamed Vav and Lamed Zayin Tanya Israel talks about Dir B'Tachtonim, important mitzvahs ma'asis. The Meraglim missed out. They called them sick on that day in Yeshiva when they were teaching those prakim in Tanya. And then Koirach, he missed out on the next prakim where it talks about the oir. Because here we're talking about the importance of kavanas mitzvahs. Yes, Moshe was right. In other words, the message of Meraglim was the ikir's ma'isa mitzvahs. But that doesn't negate the importance of kavana. That only means that the kavana has to be in the context of ma'isa. The kavana alone, that ava v'yira, when it's detached from mitzvahs ma'asiyas, is meaningless. But you have to have kavanah, you have to have boiker, you have to have the light in a mitzvah. You can't have a mitzvah which is dark. When I say dark, where the ur of Hashem is in it, is to such a minimum. You can't have that. You have to have a mitzvah which is alive and pulsating and vibrant and is a spiritual, alive, like a neshama and a guf, alive act which has the gili of Eir Sof in it. And that's where Koirach was wrong, because both of the elements are important. Hashem wants Hadir B'Tachtonim. He wants Takas to do Ma'isa mitzvahs, but he wants that those Ma'isa mitzvahs should be alive and should be light, should be boiker. And that is the function of a Rebbe. That is the function of a Rebbe. That is the function of Moshe Rabbeinu. The function of Moshe Rabbeinu, we can all do mitzvahs. Everyone can do mitzvahs. For that, theoretically, l'chayra, we don't need Moshe Rabbeinu to do mitzvahs. But the job of Moshe Rabbeinu, the job of a Rebbe, and the job in general of the leaders of Klal Yisrael, is to bring about the boiker, is to lift up the Yidden, so they have greater degree of Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem and Kedusha, not because Ava and Yira and Kedusha on their own are important, but that this Ava and Yira and Kedusha should serve as the neshama of the mitzvahs, as the kavanah of the mitzvahs, and thereby producing a mitzvah, which is a beautiful mitzvah. So this is a hashgacha pratis, that this parsha is connected to the Namish, the Tanya we're learning, and also to the idea of Gimel Tamos, because this is really connected to the mission of a tzaddik, which is to increase the boiker, to increase the light amongst those who are mekusher to the tzaddik and connected to the tzaddik, and to make sure that they have higher degrees of oir. And as we mentioned, we finished now. This is a really this understanding that we've gained over the course of the last few months. It really gives us a proper balance and understanding in Yiddishkeit. On the one hand, the absolute importance of Maisa, and that's without that there's nothing. Without Maisa there's nothing. But at the same, and that's what creates the Yichud. But at the same time, also we understand the incredible importance of Kavana, and which is Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. But that obviously leads us to the next question: if Kavana is so important, how do I develop Avas Hashem? How do I develop Yiras Hashem? So that's what we're going to do in the following program. Starting from Perek Mem Aleph, we're going to be talking about Ava and Yira individually. Until now, you notice we're talking Kavana. We're lumping together collectively Ava and Yira, and both of them as Kavana, because both of them are necessary. But starting from here, from Perek Mem Aleph, we're going to start dissecting each one of them, the need of each one of them, and also different avenues of how, and different meditations, how to reach to Avos Hashem and how to reach Yiras Hashem. But that's going to come in Yiras Hashem not next week. Next week we're going to finish the Perek, and we're going to do the Hagais, all the notes that we skipped out this week, and then in Yiras Hashem, the share that follows that, we will start Perek Mem Aleph, which is a new journey. Perek Mem Aleph again is going to start. If until now we were talking about Kavana collectively, we're going to start talking about Ava and Yira individually, their importance, and how to arrive at every one of them. Good Shabbos, everyone.